If you delight in traveling and wine tasting, then we have a special opportunity for you. On February 26th from 8 to 10 at night, you can join in for a virtual wine tasting event with Rick Steves himself. That's right, we'll ship the wine to you, then Rick and a sommelier will host a Zoom event and entertain us with 2 hours of wine education in addition to a Q&A. Space is limited. Reserve your spot today at wfyi.org/live.
We're going to take a trip right now. Like we always do about this time.
This is a journey into sound.
Break it down.
I'm Kyle Long, and you're listening to Cultural Manifesto. On this week's show, I'll speak with the hip-hop beatmaker and Indianapolis native Scott Matelic. He has a new album out titled Dead Weight. Scott will join me in a moment to talk about the record. And we'll also listen back to a 2015 interview I recorded with Scott, where he reflected on his early influences as a producer.
I remember hearing Beastie Boys' License to Ill in my cousin's car. From there, LL Cool J, I'm Bad was out, and that was pretty much the beginning for me. Was just obsessed with it.
Scott Matelic is a hip-hop beatmaker and DJ. His recorded output traces a persistent path through underground hip-hop from the late 1990s into the present. He developed a style rooted in sample-based beat production, shaped by the crate-digging traditions of DJ culture. His soulful, psychedelic beats attracted international attention from DJs and rappers, including the East Coast rapper Sage Francis and the Japanese producer Nujabes.
My first name first, Scott, and my second name second. Metallic, and myself. Call me by both of my names.
His debut album, Primitive Pessimist, was issued in 2004 by the Japanese label Tri-8. Scott has also collaborated with Indianapolis artists, including rapper Sirius Black. Last year, they released a full-length album titled Daily Rituals of the Wild Heart.
Look, falling in love with growing older. As I stumble down my shoulder blades, I look up and talk to my grandfather, so I'm not afraid. Never really blended in with the network and social life. So many beautiful, familiar faces at the show tonight. Stones crying out to the stars at the Northern Lights. So polite, mobilized, round table full of noble knights.
Scott is currently based in New York, but he was born and raised in Indianapolis. In our 2015 conversation, we discussed his early roots in Indianapolis and the influence of his father, Ron Matelic. Ron is a legendary Indianapolis psychedelic rock musician, known for his work with the bands Anonymous, J. Ryder, and Sir Winston and the Commons.
On the sidewalk is a sign that you made it. On your window is the price that you paid it. Best on rising, best on
Let's listen back to an excerpt of my 2015 conversation with Scott Matelic.
My whole family was interested in music growing up. I just always remember music being around, whether it be listening to Led Zeppelin while we played basketball in the basement, or lots of Beatles, Fleetwood Mac, the Byrds, Beach Boys. You know, those all stand out growing up. Yeah, so it was just pretty constant.
And your dad is a guitarist, obviously. I'm sure he had some instruments lying around at home. You're known for producing electronic music, essentially.
Yeah.
Were you messing around with any of your dad's gear as a kid?
Not really. It was kind of like, don't touch anything.
Yeah.
And growing up, other band members kept their equipment in our basement as well, so we were always very interested in the drums. Johnny Medvesic, who played in Sir Winston and Anonymous, and Jay Ryder, with my dad, he kept his drums in our basement, so it was very enticing to want to set them up. But, honestly, we didn't really know how to set them up anyway, even though I think we may have tried to do that once. But we got too scared and thought, we probably shouldn't be doing this. So, but yeah, never really touched them. But, I had access to, like, drumsticks, so I would, like, beat on chairs or whatever, really.
Okay.
So yeah.
And I first became aware of you as a hip hop producer, hip hop beat maker. I'm curious if there was a particular record you heard that got you interested in trying to learn about hip hop production.
Not production per se offhand, but I remember hearing Beastie Boys' "License to Ill" in my cousin's car, and then from there, LL Cool J, "I'm Bad," that record was out, and that was pretty much the beginning for me. Was just obsessed with it, and then that was kind of around the same time UMTV Raps was about to come on, and so I watched that religiously, and it just grew from there. But yeah, I would say it mainly started with LL Cool J, "I'm Bad."
And some of the early beats you made, I can't help but think might have been influenced by the music you were exposed to as a kid. It seemed like you were drawing a lot from, 60s psychedelic rock and 70s kind of progressive sounds. Is that right? Were you kind of maybe subconsciously tapping into that moment in your childhood? What was sort of guiding your taste as a beat maker and the samples you used in the music you were creating?
Yeah, that's a pretty good question. I mean, I liked that stuff, and I always wondered if, my ear for melody comes from my dad. I'm very much drawn to melodies and whatnot, but not only the rock music. I mean, I was interested in other things too, funk and soul and R&B or whatever, and it's grown from there. But maybe initially, yeah, it comes from that music I grew up around. Well, maybe you're onto something. I don't know.
Scott rose to national prominence in the early 2000s through his work with Anticon Records. Established in California in 1998, Anticon developed a reputation for issuing experimental rap music that challenged the norms of mainstream hip-hop through abstract lyricism and unconventional production. Scott's beats were used in prominent Anticon releases from rappers Soul and Sage Francis.
Gotten half of the combos anyway, so there's idol worship. These songs are all different sides of me. I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing, but this is cleansing, a baptism in Babylon, a broken bottle of humans with idiosyncrasies are fiestas. And I forgot my hip-hop hat, cut off all the heads, quietly naked, streaming for attention. Used to wear my ego as a sweater, now it's the cape that bothers me.
How did you get connected from Indianapolis with Anticon, and how did that whole relationship start?
It was all internet-based. In the late 90s, I was very much into like the record culture, and there was an online email list that existed. It was before whosample.com, before Rap Sample FAQ existed. It was just an email list. A bunch of guys would contribute and things like that, and I just happened to sign up for it, and guy named Mood Swing 9 who used to work with soul. He and I connected through the internet somehow in that regard. And I sent him a tape of beats. He passed it along to Soul, and Soul called me, and he selected a few different things. So it was all through Mood Swing 9.
Mm-hmm. How did you feel about that use of your beats?
I was excited. Yeah. That's when Anticon was really kind of on the come up. People were checking for them. But I was just excited that, people would hear my beats. It was like, I was just super thankful.
She's a fairy with broken wings. I used to watch her perform, and if she hears me, I hope she sings songs that have me going right back. Couldn't find anyone in town to talk about how no one like that should be confined to the ground we walk. She glides, but it seems like she floats, and these folks decide to crush her wings until they're permanently broke. She'd ride gusts of wind just by the way she spoke. She cries, but loves to sing songs of freedom and hope on the east side, hustling, discussing things that we quote in shallow conversations as if we have deep throats. We choke on our confusion, not sure if it's a heat stroke or if we need coats, trading in our cheap jokes for her C notes. I see notes being passed to ask to see what these creeps wrote.
In addition to his work as a producer, Scott is also a respected DJ. I asked Scott about his work as a DJ, including a 2004 event in Broad Ripple with the iconic electronic music producer and DJ Diplo. Around that time, too, you started, correct me if I'm wrong, but you started DJing more around Indianapolis, is that right?
Yeah.
You were
definitely.
doing, I think, a weekly event at the Casbah called, was it called Multiform? Is that right? Okay.
Multiform, yeah.
Tell me about, kind of getting started, being more of a presence in the DJ scene here.
It stems from a trip to Philadelphia that I took in 2003 with some friends, and we went to New York City initially, and I ended up leaving records that I brought in a taxi cab in New York City, and it was heartbreaking. Billy Wooten, not the Wooden Glass, but the
In This World.
In This World, yeah, I left that, and so I left my records in this taxi cab and was super bummed. My friend who we were with was living in the Philadelphia area, and was like, well, let's go back to Philly, and we'll go to this party on Saturday night. So we did, and it was actually one of the Holotronics parties with Diplo and Low Budget, and that was insane to me, because those guys were playing all different genres, and people were very receptive to it. Whether it be Crunk was really big at the time, or he was playing like New Shoes, or like dance hall or whatever. So from there, I was like, I want to do something similar to that.
You were inspired by what you saw Diplo and Holotronics doing in Philadelphia and wanted to come and kind of do something similar here.
Yeah, very much so. So yeah, that's why we, try to incorporate different genres, and hopefully, it would be received well.
Yeah, and I think this is a cool little bit of Broad Ripple music history. You mentioned Diplo, and he's gone on to become, I think one of the most influential forces in American popular culture, if not global popular culture, through his work with Major Lazer and MIA. Diplo played at your party at the Casbah, right?
Yeah.
He was on tour, I think, with RJ-D2 at the time. Yeah. How did that go, Diplo at the Casbah?
So I'd actually known Diplo through the email list that I
the
referenced
record
earlier.
sample.
Yeah,
list,
the record sample thing. And he liked the Year of the Sex Symbol record a lot. And so he was always very, very cool with me. So I'd met him a couple of times, I guess, before that. And he just happened to be touring. So I was like, yo, you should come through and play after the RJD2 show, which was across the street at the patio. And yeah, so he just came through and played records. It was a lot of fun. It was a busy night. Yeah, it was fun.
We've been listening back to my 2015 conversation with the producer and DJ Scott Matelic. Scott will join me in a moment to discuss his latest release, Dead Weight. But first, let's hear a classic track from his debut album, Primitive Pessimist. This is To Impress the Empress.
So what have you tried lately? That's a start. That's good. Because here you can do anything you want. No matter how crazy it is.
That was Scott Matelic with To Impress the Empress off his 2004 release, Primitive Pessimist. Cultural Manifesto will return after this short break.
If you delight in traveling and wine tasting, then we have a special opportunity for you. On February 26th from 8 to 10 at night, you can join in for a virtual wine tasting event with Rick Steves himself. That's right, we'll ship the wine to you, then Rick and a sommelier will host a Zoom event and entertain us with 2 hours of wine education in addition to a Q&A. Space is limited. Reserve your spot today at wfyi.org/live.
I'm Kyle Long, and you're listening to Cultural Manifesto. In just a moment, the DJ and producer Scott Matelic will join me to discuss his latest album, Dead Weight. But first, let's hear a track off that record. This is Dreams Parallel. That was the DJ, producer, and Indianapolis native, Scott Matelic, with Dreams Parallel, off his latest album, Dead Weight. Scott recently visited the WFYI studios to talk about the album. Let's join our conversation. Scott, thank you so much for taking time to be here today.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
You have an incredible new album out called Dead Weight. Congrats on the release of this project.
Thank you. Long time coming.
Yeah, it is. And I'm going to ask you a few questions about that later. First, I wanted to kind of go back to your roots in the Indianapolis hip-hop scene. We spoke back in 2016, and we talked extensively about your entry into production, music production, hip-hop production. I remember at that time you told me that there were a couple key people here in the city that really mentored you or influenced you. One was Tyler Knapp from the Mug Kids, who produced a lot of their tracks, and the other was DJ Top Speed, the legendary hip-hop turntablist. Can you give us a sense of what the hip-hop scene was like here in Indianapolis as you started integrating yourself into that world? Who were some of the figures, the MCs, the DJs that you were attracted to, and how did you kind of work your way into that scene?
Yeah, I think initially it was my introduction to homegrown productions, which was Top Speed, El Mas, Rusty, and Indiana Jones. That was their group. They had released an EP like 93, 94, and I'd actually heard it on the radio, a song called Osmosis, and I was really kind of taken aback that something local could sound so professional and well done. So from there, I just found out Top Speed was on the radio a couple years later, and just kind of locked in and would catch him whenever I could. And from there, I met Top Speed, and then I kind of was brought into the circle and met Ron Miner and Tyler and all those guys, Russ. And from there, I realized that there was already a community established, and I befriended a lot of those guys who were also very influential to me. I was running around with these guys. The whole collective was called Archipelago Galactic. So a lot of those guys taught me. A guy named Agent Apparatus, my good friend Jay McElfresh, they were like the first degree. They were like the guys who had samplers who kind of showed me the way, like along with Top Speed. But like, here's kind of records you want to look for. Here's how you sample them. Here's how you chop them and sequence them, make songs. So that was really the foundation of what I do to this day.
As you entered into this scene as a DJ and producer, what kind of clubs were you going to? Where were you playing? There was a point in time where rap music was not welcome at a lot of clubs here in the city, especially in places like Broad Ripple. Mm-hmm. Where were you playing? Where were you getting to hear this music live in Indianapolis at that time? The
Emerson was a big one. Mud Kids performed there very often, and it was always a treat to see them. Because I feel like, they were established here and in the Midwest in general. And there was a place called the Bomb Shelter on the west side, not far from my parents, not far from where I grew up, that would do, it was like a warehouse style party. And I remember there being another spot that I went to, one or two warehouse parties where like Indiana Jones brought Evil D from the Beat Miners, and that was really a treat, because this is just somebody who I'd looked up to and only seen on TV. But beyond that, I can't really think of any other places off the top of my head. But definitely the Emerson was a big one where we would convene. Or there were shows at the patio, but I was under 21 at the time, so I literally would just hover outside, try to listen. Again, Ron Miner played a big part in booking the majority of those shows, if not all. So it was like, again, groups that I looked up to, people from the East Coast or the West Coast, national acts. So it was like a treat to, be able to see them.
You currently live in New York. You've been there for 15 years,
yeah,
roughly?
Going on 16.
16.
Yeah, almost, yeah.
You really stay connected to the hip-hop scene here in Indianapolis. Earlier this year, you released an album with the Indianapolis MC Sirius Black, Daily Rituals of the Wild Heart. I know you come back here and continue to DJ in the city when you're here. Why is it important for you to stay connected here? I'm sure you could work with anybody in New York. There's plenty of options. Why do you keep that connection open here?
It's home, and, I want to see the people here do well. And actually I was talking to Drake Cole McCoy last night saying, like, there really needs to be a light to shine on the city. There's just so many talented people here, and if there's any way that I could help do that, I want to be a part of it. And it's just, there's just so many talented folks here. But yeah, I mean, I also don't want to limit myself just to people in Indianapolis, but I do want to help where I can.
Big stepping, so I can't be trail. A little sweating, so I chase a meal. D&D, so let's keep it real. That smart talk never felt for real. Big deal, still will. Got my soul tinted. I big chill when they ill. Got my show shifted. I pitch in when they chill. I know the room shifted. I'm boxed in, I pop stems. I know they see me lit. This is what they want, what they want, what they like. This is what they want, what they want, what they like.
You issued your debut album as a producer in 2004. Around that same time, you were producing really groundbreaking records in underground hip-hop music for artists like Soul and Sage Francis, records that people still listen to and are influenced by today. But there was a period of about 15 years where you weren't releasing much new music. In the last few years, it seems like you've had a real burst of creative energy. I think you've released 3 full-length projects since 2021. Mm-hmm. Can you kind of put that into perspective for us? Kind of why you have this, what looks like maybe a sudden burst of creative energy. It's probably not, but yeah, kind of put that time into perspective for us.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of these projects I've been releasing it's just been stuff I've been working on in that time period, more or less. The most recent album, Dead Weight, for sure. A lot of that was just, it started right after my first album, Primitive Pessimist, came out, So I've always been working on music. It's now easier than ever to release your own music independently. The reason why I wasn't releasing as much music then is because, I was shopping things to indie labels and that could be like pretty hit or miss. So the way the landscape is now, it's just, it's very convenient for artists to do everything themselves.
I mentioned Primitive Pessimist. It's been, 20-some years since you put that out. What do you make of the ongoing interest in your work? I mean, it still sounds very fresh, and, now lo-fi music is a big a trend among listeners of YouTube and Spotify. What do you make of the ongoing interest in your work?
I'm just thankful, It could very easily just be looked over or passed over, but you never know what's going to happen when you make this stuff or who it's going to impact or whatever. I didn't even intend for that to be an album. The first version I made was just to sell at a Sage Francis show in Bloomington. And I opened for him, and I just was like, well, I should have product to sell too. And it was just kind of stuff I was making at the time. Some that I intended to be instrumental music, but some I intended for people to rap on. And I know one of the songs on there, Soul, actually recorded to, I've never heard it to this day, but so the goal in my mind was to have artists on those songs. But then once I came up with the initial idea myself, I don't know how it ended up in the hands of the Japanese distributor, but they decided they wanted to release it as an album. But for me, the original idea was it was just kind of like a showcase, not really an album.
Yeah. Since you mentioned that, I want to ask about this. It seems like the Japanese hip-hop fans really helped elevate your work internationally. Your album, Primitive Pessimist, was released in Japan, and then a few years later, the very influential Japanese hip-hop producer Nujabes, known for his work on the anime cartoon Samurai Champloo, featured one of your tracks on a compilation album, a mix. Nujabes died tragically young, I think, in a car accident. Mm-hmm. Talk to me about that. I mean, he's someone who people still revere as a hip-hop producer today, has influenced a lot of younger producers. What does that mean to you to have a place in his legacy?
It's really special. Again, at the time when he reached out to me, I wasn't really aware of his work. And, it was just somebody who wanted to use my work as a contribution to this compilation that he was putting together. So, of course, I was honored, regardless of who it was. And it wasn't until after the fact that I realized his impact on the scene out there. And yeah, it is unfortunate. But yeah, I'm just excited, and I was excited at the time just to be featured. And I believe, the interest in that project is strictly because of that, or predominantly because of that, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, he had major collaborators. I know he did a piece with Terry Collier. Mm-hmm. In his short lifetime, he put out some incredible music and worked with some incredible people. Mm-hmm. Have you had a chance to play in Japan and go meet folks there?
It's something I've been thinking about for the last 20 years. So, I mean, hopefully one day.
Scott, I want to talk about your new album, Dead Weight, which is an incredible album. I was just blown away by the production on this record, which is very layered and complex, but put together in this seamless way. This is all sample-based, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
There's one thing on there that I played myself, but everything else is it's all sampled from the record. So
yeah. I want to ask you a little about your process as a producer in a minute. But first, just tell us a bit about the material on this album. You said some of this stretches back to post-Primitive Pessimist 20 years ago, right?
Mm-hmm.
What are we hearing on this record?
In 2005, the fall of 2005, my good friend E-Mind suggested that I take a little break from Indianapolis, see what the world is like outside for a little bit. So he grew up, or his family was established in the suburbs of Philadelphia. So I went out there kind of without much of a plan. I had a little money, and so I just drove out there, and I brought records with me, and didn't have a job for a few months, and just worked on music more or less. I was able to craft a 4-song EP at the time, and that's like what I was saying. I was shopping that to smaller labels and people that were like releasing down-tempo or instrumental hip-hop at the time. Looking back, for me, I kind of accomplished a lot, I feel like. But yeah, I just brought like 3 boxes of records that I may or may not want to sample, I try to do it strategically. So, a few of the songs that you hear on Dead Weight literally were made 20 years ago, which is kind of insane. And I wanted to release an album, but it just never panned out. And then just over the years, I kind of added on here and there. But the majority of the project, at least I had sketches made, before 2010, I would say. But all of them I revisited. They got facelifts, A few of the songs I had, totally structured and sequenced, but without drums at all. So a few of the songs didn't have drums until this year. So I just knew them as, these drumless works. But yeah, so revisiting them and adding new elements, that was really a refresher for me. It renewed my interest in these works because, after hearing them so many times, you kind of get burnt out. But I definitely went back and revisited and touched things up.
I mentioned the resurgence of interest in instrumental sample-based hip-hop music, which now is being referred to as lo-fi. There's like a huge community for this music online. Has that inspired you at all to kind of start sharing music again? Do you get any kind of bleed over from that audience at all coming to your work?
I don't know if I get bleed over, but I'm sure it doesn't hurt, Yeah. A good friend of mine from Illinois, goes by Mediocre. He runs the Potions music label, who put out...
great producer.
Yeah. He put out the In a Sky Blue on vinyl. Great guy. I've known him for a long time. He started noticing within the last few years that some of his instrumental music was, they're having a resurgence with like younger people. And so, yeah, that did like inspire me to complete, what I'd been working on. And also this project itself had been hanging over my head for so long. I was just ready to stop thinking about it, to be honest. And so, yeah, that was the goal, just to have a clean slate.
Yeah. I want to share a track from Dead Weight with our listeners. We're going to hear I Would Be Through, an incredible piece. Anything you want to say about this before we listen?
Yeah, this is actually one that I made in Pennsylvania. That was like one of the 4 demo songs that I made in like 2005 or 2006. And it was at a time where like RJD2 was doing these really cool songs where he would just lift vocals from records and build songs around them. And I was really inspired by that. And this was my attempt at something like that.
Yeah, great attempt.
Thank you.
Off the album Dead Weight, this is Scott Matelic with I Would Be Through. I'm Kyle Long, and you're listening to Cultural Manifesto. We just heard Scott Matelic with I Would Be Through off his new album, Dead Weight, and Scott is my guest this week. And Scott, I don't want to pressure you to give away your trade secrets, but kind of broadly speaking, could you give us a sense of your process as a producer? I mean, we have a very diverse listenership. Some people don't know that much about hip-hop sampling. How does this process start for you? Do you hear a sample that kind of like speaks to you, or do you start with a beat? Is there any sort of template that you use to create this music?
Yeah, I mean, when I first started making beats and my equipment was very limited, I kind of would start with drums first because that was just always the focal point in hip-hop. But once my equipment got more advanced, I would start with a melody or, something with melody first and then build around that. And that's kind of how I've operated in the last, 20 years or so. It's always like the sample first, or if I have a melody in my head, or, I could sample something, reshape it to fit whatever melody I'm hearing, or try my best to do that. And then from there, you just start adding little flourishes and maybe a counter melody or, something to accompany it. It can be for a project like Dead Weight, it can be, a long and arduous process.
Music production has changed a lot since you started making beats in the 1990s. I assume your early work was all done by hand on an MPC sampler or largely done that way. How has the way you make music changed in that time period? I assumed it's changed a lot, or has it? Or are you still cranking it out on the MPC?
Yeah, I'm stuck in my ways. Before the MPC, everybody in Indianapolis had an EMU Emax or a Baldwin Ike, which was essentially the same machine. It was like a big keyboard that had sampling time in it, and that's what Top Speed had, so that's what we all had. And right when the MPC 2000 XL became available, I jumped ship, and that was my weapon of choice, and it still is. I'm super comfortable with it. I probably should move on and make my workflow a little more fluid, but I'm stuck in my ways, and to learn a new machine for me is the idea of learning a new machine, and the time spent doing that is a big turnoff for me. But yeah, the MPC is my main. It's the main piece in my setup, and I did start using Pro Tools in 2020, I think. So yeah, I dump everything from the MPC into Pro Tools and finish everything in Pro Tools.
Sampling has been such a big part of hip-hop music and producer culture. Hip-hop is now over 50 years old. A lot of the obvious samples have dried up. Can you talk about keeping your sound fresh in 2025, 2026, in the present day, keeping your sound fresh while being a sample-based producer? I mean, it's probably like the window of available music that you can use has probably shrunk quite a bit.
It's definitely changed over the course of all these years. Like, my ear has changed as well. And there's so much competition with sampling now, and I'm from the era where you buy the record and you sample from the record. and the kids have the advantage of whatever's available online. They're not going the record route, which is probably in their best interest. But yeah, I still love the pursuit of records, and I still love owning the records and sampling the records. But owning as many records as someone like you or me do, and my ear changing, I can always go revisit what I do have, and something that I think is cool now, I probably didn't think was cool in 1999 or whatever. I'm always able to go back and hear new things. But with technology now, there's the ability to create stems.
I wanted to ask you about that.
Yeah. Which is very advantageous. But I think it's a good thing overall. It just gives you more freedom, I think, in the ability to do what you want or what you hear in your head.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you, as we discuss changing technology in music, AI has become a huge presence in our daily lives, but it's also changing the way music is created. I know a couple local rappers here who have done projects using AI beats. What do you think about that? You mentioned you still are creating music on the MPC through samples you're finding on records you're buying out at record stores. You're going out in the real world, digging for these records. What do you make of the use of AI in hip-hop?
I mean, I'm not against it at all. A stem separating program I use is AI based. So, and I know not a lot, but I know people who create samples in AI and then chop them and whatever and replay them. So, it's just another creative component for a lot of people. And if it's a way for somebody to get their music out there, then, more power to them.
Yeah.
I'm not upset by it.
Yeah, I agree. Well said.
Yeah.
Scott, as I mentioned, you've been very prolific over the past few years. Earlier this year, you released an album with Sirius Black. We did an interview at that time, and you mentioned you guys might be working on a second project. Before we go today, I wanted to give you a chance to talk about any upcoming projects you have that you want to share with our listeners, or any final thoughts you want to share with the audience here in Indiana.
Yeah, we haven't really started on the second project, but we've talked about it. He's a busy and prolific guy, so whenever he can fit it into his schedule, for sure. Ideally, I'd like to release something with him again before 2026 is over. He has a group with Draco called Bloody Knuckles 2. They're going to have a project out in 2026 as well. I have some work on that, so just plugging away, and there are so many artists that I would like to work with here and all over the country, really. So we'll see what happens.
I want to end with one more track off Dead Weight. I'm going to share the track "Ways the Sun Beams," an incredible piece that it shifts in this different direction in the middle of the piece. Anything you want to say about this before we listen?
Yeah, that's one of those songs. I did that probably in 2006 or 2007, but the whole second half of the song where it shifts, that was something I've done within the last year or so. Again, this was like one of those tracks that it never had drums until this year. So I knew it as one thing that was like half the length of what you hear on the record, like without drums, and it just gave it a new life. I just kept adding strings and different pieces, different elements, and it took on a different life and made it exciting for me, and I really am pleased with the end result.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Thank you.
We're going to hear that track next. Scott, thank you so much for taking time to be here today to talk about your new release, Dead Weight.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate you.
Yeah, this is Scott Matelic with Ways the Sun Beams. That's all the time we have for this week. Thank you to my guest, Scott Matelic. If you appreciate the arts and culture programming you hear on this station, please consider making a donation now at WFYI.org/give. And check out the Cultural Manifesto podcast at WFYI.org or wherever you listen to podcasts. Cultural Manifesto is hosted and produced by me, Kyle Long. Thank you for listening.
If you delight in traveling and wine tasting, then we have a special opportunity for you. On February 26th from 8 to 10 at night, you can join in for a virtual wine tasting event with Rick Steves himself. That's right, we'll ship the wine to you, then Rick and a sommelier will host a Zoom event and entertain us with 2 hours of wine education in addition to a Q&A. Space is limited. Reserve your spot today at WFYI.org/live.